For over 20 years, the Fire Store has equipped first responders with the best in firefighting gear. Discover seasonal savings on the gear you trust and visit thefirestore.com to shop everything but the truck.
Hey, welcome back to another edition of Fire Engineering's Tactical Impact. I am your host, Jim Silvernail, and with me is my co-host, Jason Hoevelmann. We are coming to you today. We're filming, actually, during the Thanksgiving break. We should be airing this right after, but we got a great show for you planned today. We got a great guest on. As you know, this is the show about tactics. However, today we're going to get a little deeper than just operational tactics. We want to talk about the fire service, and the best way to do that is to have our guest on that we're going to have. And you can see him there. Some of you may know him, some of you may not. But Jason and I felt it was important. This gentleman is retiring here next month, and he is the epitome of what it is to be a firefighter. And I say that with all certainty. As a fire chief, I would take 100 of these guys, if not the whole department. He is what makes a tactical impact on your culture. And not only, he's an operational guy, don't get me wrong. He comes from the north side of our county. Now's your time, Jason, to talk about the north side.
Very proud of the north side.
That's where the fires occur in our area. And this gentleman is no stranger to fire. But like I said, he is the epitome of what it is to be a firefighter. And that's what we want to expose today with our show, is to really talk about culture and what his career has meant to all of us. And you don't have to know Dave to get something out of the show. What you need to know is that, what it takes to be a firefighter today, and what we want our fire service going forward. And I think that's truly why we have him on today. But Jay, why don't you go ahead and introduce him?
Yeah, so it's a complete honor and privilege to have him on with us. So I want to just kind of lay a little groundwork. And the fire service, I think we would all agree, in the last 20, 25 years has seen a renaissance in hands-on training and operational emphasis to be better firefighters. And really, over that period of time, there was a huge push by a lot of different people and organizations to get back to the basics and to get back to training and the traditions that were meaningful in making us better firefighters overall. And St. Louis area and region we were in the same line as the national movement was in that renaissance. And for the St. Louis area, one of the huge pivot points for us in this area was the creation and leadership of the Muddy River Fools by David Dubowski. And his leadership in that organization helped push along that boulder of making training fun, making training a priority, making being a good firefighter a priority, making going into the firehouse and being proud and enjoying the job and being about the job. That pivot in our area, really one of the catalysts for that was the Muddy River Fools, and not just the organization, but the leadership that Dave Dubowski provided for that organization and largely for our area, bringing in outside speakers, hosting the 2013 convention in St. Louis. And I'll let him talk a little bit more about the sequel to that possibly. And then on a personal note, being able to go to a lot of fires with Dave, being able to go to a lot of training with Dave up on the north side. We do have a special brotherhood up there on the north end that we're all very proud of, despite of its many challenges. We love it up there. And we're very proud to have you on here, Dave. And we look forward for you to share your experience and your parting advice to those that are in the job and coming into the job. So without further ado, the man, the myth, the legend, Captain David Dubowski, Spanish Lake Fire Protection District, President, Muddy River Fools.
How about just a fireman?
We'll do that.
That's how I look at myself, as just a fireman. So thanks, Jason, and thanks, Jim, for having me. It's quite an honor to be asked to be with two of my favorite people in the St. Louis area right now. Jason, you talked a lot about training and instruction. I want to get it out right now. I am not a fire instructor. To me, it takes a special person to be a fire service instructor, especially these days. I'm an organizer. I send out a couple emails to the members, to my guys, and they get the stuff done. I'm just the organizer that kind of puts it all together, and that's what I like doing. So I do teach one class. Me and Zach from up at Florissant Valley, we teach out at the St. Louis County Fire Academy. It's the history of the fire service. We teach that to the recruits the first week of their academy class. It's an important class, and we always throw in there about loving the job and what's ahead of you, and that passion that all these recruits really need to have if they want to get something back from the fire service.
Yeah. So when I was talking about culture, Dave, he's being very, I'm a firefighter. He is a firefighter at heart. Absolutely. But he does more than that. It's not just the 24 hours on duty. This guy lives, breathes, bleeds firefighting. He not only from his participation in the Muddy River Fools, his teaching at the Fire Academy about tradition. He's all about keeping the tradition of our business, but he does not ever take that name tag off. He is always representing our job. And I can't think of a better guy to do that, but I'm going to tell a real quick story. I got to get this out of the way. Before, this is a fire engineering product here that we're bringing you today, but I'm going to tell a story. I'm going to tell it myself just because of this guy's hobby, that it's his fault. Back in, I think it was 1998 when I was a young firefighter. I got some kind of connection with another magazine, and it's his fault. It's the magazine. It's the competing magazine that's synonymous with Fire Station. And he was at a fire that we went to. I think we were on the second or third alarm, and he snapped a picture, and he turned the picture because he's a freelance, photographer, and got the cover of that magazine for, what was that, May? I don't remember. It was 98.
The fire happened right at 98, the end of 98, and I believe it got published in 99. The spring of 99.
That's right. It was 99. Okay. But because of him, my crew was on the cover of that magazine. Now, I've never told David Rhodes this. I've never told Diane this because I don't want that to come back on me. But it's all your fault, Dubo. But the reason why we did it is because this guy used to go to every fire on the north side on his day off and take pictures. Him and Tim Oak are almost the same as getting out there and getting pictures. Tim Oak does Chicago, Dubo does St. Louis, but it's just that's just you. You can never turn it off, and I love that about you. And talk a little bit about your photography.
So hey, you made a good point. Used to. I remember that fire well because it was right around the time my oldest son, Michael, was born. He was born December 23rd of 98. And that fire was probably one of my last really good fires back before kids. Michael's on the job now up with Chief Hoevelmann, been up there 5 years now. But yeah, that was what I did. But I would say since then, my biggest accomplishment has what happened since then. And that is I've raised 4 sons. My wife and I just had our 30th anniversary. So with that love of the job, I was always able to manage family first. And that is so important to me. And, looking back at overall my accomplishments, that family first thing, raising 4 sons, being married 30 years, that's my number one. That's my number one thing that sticks out. But pictures, man, I blame it on my dad. He was a World War II vet, and they landed in North Africa and made their way up to Italy, and he had a camera. He was one of the few soldiers back then that had a camera. He's got some really cool pictures. And, he was the one that got me my first camera, and I started taking fireground photos back in 84. So I've got, I don't know, about close to 20,000 photos in my collection now, and living where I did up in North St. Louis County. St. Louis was really burning back in those days. and this right here. It's not a fire I took. I think all the photos that I sent you guys are actually fires that I was on.
Oh,
So yeah. None of the pictures I sent
no,
you
these are the ones you took.
I took.
Those are better
Yeah.
though. Yeah. No, your pictures are phenomenal, but you in them are great.
Yeah, that's the cool thing, having somebody take a picture of me after taking pictures of everybody else. So that's kind of been my hobby. Back then it was just taking a picture of another fire, but 40 years now, that's a lot of history that I've captured of firefighters and fires throughout St. Louis over the last 40 years.
How important is it to capture that, Dave? How important is it to capture what we've done, where we're going, but how important is history in our business?
Oh, it's huge, and that's coming from a historian like myself. And when I start the Fire Academy class, I throw up a picture from the old Wellston Grove Fire Department in St. Louis County, a long forgotten volunteer company that sat right next to the St. Louis County Fire Academy where we teach the class. And I throw that photo up and I ask the kids, I said, what is the significance of this photo? It's an old rig and, about 8 or 10 old school firemen with their cool helmets and coats and everything. And a couple of kids, hey, it was this first. But to me, I tell them, no, the significance of this photo was 100 years ago. Somebody took the time to take that photo. And here we are 100 years later talking about that photo. So I encourage all the students, all the recruits to take pictures throughout their 30 years, because that 30 years is going to come and go. And now it's so easy because everybody has their phone. We always throw that caveat in there about don't be Facebook stupid, but take a lot of photos, because those guys that you worked with in your early years, you're going to wish you had pictures of you standing next to them 30 years later as you get ready to retire.
What about that one?
There we go. There we are, buddy. That's Class 10, St. Louis County Fire Academy in 1985.
Where are you at? Where are you at?
I'm right in the center. I got the old yellow helmet on, sitting way up right in the center there.
Oh, there you are, right up in the top.
That's me. Boy, we had a good class, and we had a good time. The rules were a little bit more lax, and you can relate to this, Jim, because that was before the St. Louis County Fire Academy was built, and our class was based out of Baldwin House 3.
Oh.
So we drove for 10 weeks every day from North St. Louis County out to Baldwin House 3 with, felt like we were driving to Kansas. But we had a good class. We had a really good time. Looking back, we had a lot of great instructors. The instructors weren't paid back then. They gave all the instructors $10 a day to buy their lunch.
That's crazy. I mean, I remember working for a little bit more than that, but not free, but that's when that's when you love the job, right? I mean, that's when you want to do this and you want to give back. And, I don't think the fire service has lost that completely, but we have gone in a different direction, but I'm not going to be negative today. The thing is that the fire service is still what it was. It might look different, but we still have those values. And I think it's important to be positive about that.
You have to be. And I don't buy into this whole generational thing that you hear so much and read so much about. The chief that hired me at the Riverview Fire District, where I started as a volunteer at 18, Leonard Abishon, he was a World War II Iwo Jima Purple Heart recipient. Now, I didn't appreciate that as 18 years old, but do you think that he thought my generation was messed up? You better believe he did. And it's always been that way. How could I live up to what he went through in World War II?
Oh, crazy.
And I agree, Dave. And one of the points I'll make, and you mentioned it, is in a testament to your parenting and your influence. I don't know all of your kids, but we do have Mike at our place, and him and his generation are amazing, absolutely amazing. And All the things that we're doing over there, and it's primarily because of the young people of our department that are so interested in it. And Mike, only 4 or 5 years in, is a natural leader there, and he's so into the job and so reflects the things that you have espoused on things like this in the 2 articles that I know, at least 2 articles you were published. And so kudos to you, because we love having Mike, and that generation is outstanding.
Well, that means a lot, and I'll blow your horn a little bit, Jason. Is one of the proudest days of my life was when Chief Hoevelmann, along with the union rep Brian McHugh, called me up one morning and said, "Hey, Dubo, we're going to offer your son a job at Florissant Valley, and we'd like you to be on the line with us." And they let me be on the telephone line without Michael knowing, as they asked him if he'd like to work with them at Florissant Valley Fire District. Great moment.
Luckily, he said yes.
Yes. So that picture that you just popped up with me as a young 18-year-old, man, that's a long time ago, but it went by quick. But that was a 1957 Seagrave. That was our reserve engine at Riverview back then. It was an open cab, non-synchronized transmission. You had to double clutch. I had never driven a stick shift before. And that was the first fire truck I learned how to drive. It was the reserve. For whatever reason, I remember it only went in service in the wintertime. And the cool thing about that was I got to ride tailboard a couple times when that old reserve rig went in service. But yeah, the old wooden ladders and my classic 80s haircut there. Good time.
Looking good, buddy. Looking good. Yeah, I mean, how special is that? What does it mean to you now? Did the fire service meaning change when your son became a firefighter? I mean, I know it didn't. I mean, does it have a different meaning to you now a little bit?
I guess it does. I guess in a sentimental way it does. It's always evolving. Life evolves, and the fire service is going to evolve. And if you don't evolve with it, you're going to be left behind. We can't be firemen now like we were in 1984. Thank God. We know so much out there. The science is out there now to go along with it. So we didn't have that, but it's always evolving. And, you hear guys on big city fire departments talking about, hey, it's not the same job as I was when I came on. Well, Chief Croker probably said that. It wasn't the same job now as it was when I came on. So it's always changing.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because, we still have those old people that want to be salty or aspire to be salty. And some are, but you are salty. You've gone to a lot of fires. You got into this business in the 80s, but you embrace the science and you embrace the change and understand what it takes to be, tactically sound at a fire. I mean, do you think that's unheard of? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, you have to see what's out there. I mean, there's guys that never leave their firehouse, never leave their fire department, never pick up a fire engineering magazine. Looking back on my career, there's 2 defining moments that I look back. And the first one was going to FDIC for the first time. 1996. It was the first year. It was in Indianapolis. I just got married. In fact, Florissant Valley had a brand new rig at FDIC that year, and that's why I went. One of my buddies at Florissant Valley said, "Hey, you want to go up to FDIC with me?" Which I had no idea what it was. And just on a whim, I went to FDIC. But the people that I've met because of that first trip changed me, changed my career. The second one was getting involved with the Fools. That brought up a whole nother caliber of people. But if you don't see what's out there in the American Fire Service, you're just going to fail to what all when there's so much out there that's going on and progressing the American Fire Service.
I can't agree with you more. When I was a young firefighter, we had a lot of good opportunities at Metro West. When I was there, we sent a lot of people to FDIC, brought back new ideas, and it really opened up your mind. When you got back, you're like, hey, we don't do it that way. Why don't, and it may start making you think that there are different ways of making operational decisions in this business. And, some are right. Some are, what is the right answer? There's so many answers out there that some are right, some are wrong, but that's the key, is being open-minded.
It does, but it also leads to a lot of frustration. And you know what I'm saying. You go and you see what's going on. You talk to these, brother and sister firefighters that work at these great progressive departments, and then all of a sudden you try to come back and want to change your place, and it doesn't always go well.
I will make a comment about that, and you're absolutely right. I remember coming back and being frustrated because you'd be like, "Hey, why aren't we doing it like this?" Or "Why? Well, can we make some changes?" And all, the older generation didn't want to change, and I'm not all the old generation, but some didn't want to change. But here's the thing: is eventually those seeds will take place. They will grow, and you will start having this generation come up that will make that change happen. And we're seeing it in our county. And, having a little bit of experience and seeing that firsthand is just, it is absolutely great to see,
and I think, Dave, to your point, the thing that's special about guys like you and others that have had those challenges, you didn't let that change you. You were still on the forefront, leaning forward, working to get those and yourself and those around you better. And I think that's a big takeaway for people that are watching this, that even when you have those struggles and challenges in your own organization, don't let it change you. Don't become those problems yourself.
Correct. And like Kurt says, embrace the target, and you do become a target. You have the passion, you have the love, you have the desire to change. You do become a target in your firehouse.
Yeah, embrace it. Somebody's got to make the change.
Yep.
And there'll be somebody coming up that didn't agree with us, and they'll be making a change.
Correct.
And are they wrong? No. It's just a matter of the way that evolution happens in our business.
Dave, you had an article published not too long ago in Fire Engineering, and it was related to back to your hobby, but the things, people think you just go take these pictures, but you did a really good job of outlining what you learned over all of those years of going to fires and taking pictures. I think it'd be good for people to hear, some of that, what you shared in the article, because it was really, really profound.
Well, thanks. And of course, that was a Chief Jason Hoevelmann nudged for me to do that article. So that was not my idea at all. But it's just an article about what I've learned and how going to so many fires over the years, just an observer, not a firefighter, but just an observer, taking photos, how much I learned from other departments, the good and the bad. I saw some really incredible company officers that held a 5-alarm together like it was just a dumpster on fire. And then I saw other departments, nothing showing to burning down a whole church. So, yeah, you learn from what you see. And back in those days, like I said, St. Louis was getting a lot of big fires. And I just happened to be at the right place at the right time and got to see a lot of those. But also the evolution of the fire district. One of the parts of the article was about positive pressure fans, which we're still debating today. Back then, hey, here's this cool new toy. Go put it on the fire truck and put it at the front door and turn it on. Well, like I say in the article, I'd always reach for an extra roll of film because that 2.5-story balloon frame construction, pretty soon we fire through the roof. So you just learn from experiences like that. And fortunately, I always loved the photography end of it. But looking back, it was a real learning experience as well that hopefully I was able to bring back to my company and make my company somewhat more efficient or somewhat better.
What was one of the most memorable fires you photographed? Do you have one?
Well, as I finish off my career now, it just happened this year, and that was my trip out to LA. I guess the pinnacle of my photography career, happened. My buddy John Citrino, that's a Boston firefighter, he's been out there a couple times for some of the wildland fires, and he knew I'd always wanted to go. So he got a hold of me a couple days before it all broke out in the Palisades back in January and said, hey, Santa Ana's are going to pop. Let's start looking at it. And we kind of kept our eye on it. And then by Sunday, we had our plane tickets booked, and we had our hotel booked, had our rental car booked. And I've got a picture of me coming into LAX about 90 minutes after the Palisades fire started. So talk about timing.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, but what I saw out there was a historical fire. I remember John at one point even saying, Dave, you're the biggest one ever. And but it won't be. Next year, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, there will be something bigger than that. But to see what the brothers and sisters have to deal with out there, 5,000 homes burning, just nothing like I've ever seen. And kudos to what they do. The whole mutual aid, give me 100 strike teams without a blink of the eye. It was fabulous to see. Tragic for everybody that lost their lives and their homes and businesses out there, but to be there and be able to photograph everything, that was it, man.
That truly is a heck of a story. I mean, like you were saying, getting outside the bubble and just seeing different worlds. It's crazy. We wouldn't even know what the magnitude of a fire like that in Missouri would be. Crazy. Let's talk a little bit about who are some of your influences throughout your career.
Yeah, that's real easy to talk about. I was that high school kid that just went to high school and really didn't know what I wanted to do. My dad was always on me about, David, what are you going to do? David, what are you going to do? And it got to be senior year of high school. And I worked at this little drugstore, and down at the other end of the drugstore, there was a sporting goods store. And Phil Boland, who was working down at the sporting goods store, would always walk down to the drugstore and hit on the cashier, Pam, that I went to high school with. And one day, like he did every day, Phil came walking in to hit on Pam, and Pam says, hey, Dave, Phil's going up to Florissant Valley Community College to be a fireman. And I'm like, you can do that? And he says, yeah. And the next morning, I was at my counselor's office at Rosary High School saying, I want to go to Florissant Valley to be a firefighter. And because of Phil, that's kind of how it all got started. I was like every other young boy that wanted to be a fireman, but never really thought about it as a career, and that happened. So Phil was a big one, obviously. My first captain at Riverview, Steve Smith, man, he taught me so much about the fire service, and he taught me a lot about life as well. And Steve set me straight on a lot of personal things, a lot of professional things. And that's number two. Number three is Mark Freshner. Mark Freshner just retired from the St. Louis City Fire Department, probably one of the longest employees they ever had down there. But I was 19 years old going to community college, had no knowledge about the fire department. I mean, none of my family was a firefighter. I really didn't know any firefighters. And Mark grabbed me after class one night and said, hey, man, you want to go out and get a beer with us? And I said, well, I'm only 19. And Mark said, well, it doesn't really matter where we're going, So that was the night I met Mark, and we became good friends. He was at a busy North Side engine house, Engine 12. And Mark taught me about the love of the job. Mark always loved the job. Like I said, he was at a very busy company. And those three guys early in my career were three big influences.
If you could go back to 1984, 1985 and tell your young self what things you would change, what things you would continue, what things you would pursue, what would you tell yourself?
Have a little bit more understanding for people in the firehouse that didn't have the same passion that I did. And that was sometimes tough for me because we've all dealt with the check suckers. And a lot of times I just get out of my way. I don't want anything to do with you. But we can't be like that, you know. And I wish, looking back, that might have been one thing is, you know, maybe try to pull them in from the dark side instead of just writing them off. But I think a few too many times I just wrote them off and like, get out of my way. And, you know, we've got stuff to do.
Dave, you were a long time as a captain riding a truck in a busy North End department. You guys go to a lot of fires. Luckily we all run into each other quite a bit. But the last several years, you've had an opportunity to at times be in a car and be the one that has to help direct things. How was that transition for you, and what were some lessons you learned from the two different roles?
Well, I didn't like it. I didn't like it one bit. And it was beneficial at times when the boys were running 4 and 5, 6 medical calls overnight, and I could just roll over and go back to sleep. But I didn't like it because I didn't feel like I was part of the team. Here they are, even if it was just a BS rubbish fire or EMS call, they're all coming back, walking back through the bay, you know, laughing and joking and having a good time. And I just, not being on the engine, I didn't feel like I was right there with them. But on big incidents, that's where I enjoyed being in the car. And if you could pull the one photo up, Jim, it shows I think it shows top 5, and it's just this huge 1-story warehouse. It's Madison. There's 2 pictures called Madison Warehouse.
I think I've got them.
Yeah, so there's 2 of them there. But that day I was in the car, and in our department in St. Louis County, we don't cross the bridge into Illinois. It just doesn't happen unless it's something spectacular. And that day, Madison, Illinois had this huge warehouse fire full of batteries and everything else. And I was in the car that day, and Jason Douster, he was the battalion chief at Florissant Valley that day. And we just kind of tag teamed it, man. And we got there, and this huge warehouse was heavily involved, heading towards another warehouse, and not a lot was going on. So quickly, myself and Jason, we got some water on the fire, and there you go. That's what we pulled up on. And you see about 10 railroad tracks there. You see a couple 5-inch lines running across. That was our first goal. All the hydrants, we confirmed that the railroad tracks were shut down. All the hydrants were across the tracks. So the thing that saved us that day over in Madison, all the streets are like 5th Street, 6th Street, 7th Street. So we just told companies, hey, catch the plug at 5th Street, and we wound up with 4 companies on a plug with 4 5-inch lines running across the tracks there. And then we were able to get some more resources there and get some ladder pipes up. Obviously, that building's gone. There wasn't much we could do, but on the Charlie side of that building, there was another warehouse. Rick Seppel was the battalion chief from North County that was over with us that day, and gave us a report that building was a lumber warehouse. So there was a lot going on. That was a fun day to be in the car, but you know, for our run-of-the-mill bread and butter calls, I just assume be on the engine. And those big calls they don't come around too much. But that was a fun day on the car.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Being in the car has its perks, but it definitely, when you're missing out on a great interior fire attack, is the day you're like, what am I doing? Why? You know, but hey, everybody has a role on the fireground. And speaking of roles, I'm going to share one more picture of that if I can. There he is. I want to show you here's your command presence. Look at that. That is a man on a mission right there. Command presence. So here's the question I'm going to ask you, and this is dangerous, but Jason and I are both big boys. Jason and I are both firefighters, but we currently are in the role of fire chiefs. What advice or what would you tell us that you'd like to see us do as fire chiefs, or where in regard to culture and the fire service?
Go back to being captains.
I wish.
It is funny, and I'll get to that question in a minute, Jimmy. But so many of my good friends, including you guys, that went on to be very influential, successful, fire officers, chief level staff officers, and chief of the departments. Every one of them has told me, Dave, my best days of the fire service was when I was that company officer. Now, that's where I want to stay, and that's where I'm going to retire. But we definitely need good people to take that next step. I don't know what to say. I mean, for somebody that had no aspiration of getting past a company officer, let the guys do their job. I guess that's our big thing that we are blessed with in North St. Louis County is the company officers are a superior caliber. And I'm not talking about me, but I am so blessed to work with so many great company officers up there. And at the end of the day at a fire, the chief officers let us do their job, let us do our job. And most times it goes pretty darn well. Just like every place, we have our little hiccups and speed bumps that we hit a little bit too fast, but let the guys do their job, man. They know what they're doing. And I guess coming from a company officer, that's probably my best advice.
It's great advice. And you're absolutely correct about being a fire captain. Best job in the entire world. Some of us were dared into these positions, and we accepted. No, I'm just kidding. No, that's not why we're here. But no, you're 100% right. And, you guys are really where I believe the culture of the fire service is created, it's maintained, and it's just such an influential position. Jason and I can write policies all day long, but if no one really listens to it or understands it or buys into it, it's shit, right? So it's really what a great position it is. But where do you want to see the fire service go? And that's the loaded question.
That's it. I mean, you got two choices. You can, even if you're in a shitty department with a shitty chief, it's your choice. You can stand up and do the right thing and keep loving the job, or you can just step back and be a slug. So, how do you want to, looking back, and I'm spending plenty of time now looking back, and every day that I come into the firehouse, man, I'm just trying to make it the greatest day at the firehouse. They always haven't been like that, but looking back, most days have been great. I wish some of the not so fun days could have been a little bit better, but that happens. But just, man, as a company officer, it's up to you. I tell anybody that makes captain, I try to give them a phone call and tell them congratulations. And I say, hey, there's two things about making company officer, making captain. We don't have lieutenants here in St. Louis for the most part, but I say the first great thing about making captain is you never have to take the stupid captain's test again. That's number one. But the second is you make the day. You come into the firehouse and you make the day. You're never going to have to work for another piece of shit captain again in your career. You're going to come in and you're going to be influential and you're going to be positive and you're going to make the day in your firehouse.
Dave, I was going to ask you what advice you had for those who are aspiring to be captain, and you've kind of answered that. But I do want to have you address a little bit more. We've all seen them. We've all maybe even felt this way at some point. What do we do about the captains or even the privates at the end of their careers who for some reason just check out? What advice can you give those people to get back on the train, get back into the job, and don't let that happen to yourself?
You guys are hitting me with some tough questions today, Boy, we see them, Jason. See them at your place, see them at my place. They're everywhere. I don't know, man. That's a tough conversation. I would say as a chief officer, you guys maybe surround that individual with just some really badass young firefighters, and maybe surrounding that company officer that's kind of lost his enthusiasm. You surround him with some very enthusiastic young firefighters that want to train and want to love the job. Maybe he's going to get back to where he needs to be.
I think it's great advice. It really is. I truly believe that, looking at Dave Dubowski, seeing somebody with your tenure and seeing that you still have that fire, there's really no excuse not to have that. I mean, there really isn't. I'll be honest. You see a lot of negative stuff in our industry. You see the mutts and all this and that. I want to tend to stay positive. I think our industry has some amazing people in it. We're not getting maybe 80 people for one position. It might be down now, and people are complaining about that. But the people we're getting are phenomenal. I mean, these young kids who are getting in this job want to be here, and they're smart. And we can't take that for granted. Just because a kid uses a device to make decisions it's technology now. And they're smarter than us. I mean, I'm not afraid to say that. They're smart. Take advantage of that, harness that. And, we have to evolve.
Yeah, 100%. We used to get in Dave's time, you go back in the 80s and 90s, especially, you had to sleep at the front door to get into the academy, which I did. You'd have hundreds of people applying for one or two positions at places. And now it's changed a little bit, but I do think that, like Jim said, and I think Dave would agree, is a lot of the people we're getting now, although the numbers are down, they really want to do it. There's a reason that they want to really do it. And I think that for organizations like the Fools and the influence that the people in there, I mean, I can look at my department alone and look at the people who are Fools, and especially on the younger side, and what they're doing at my place. It's a direct reflection of what the Fools represent and what Dave did with Muddy River Fools in particular. That's made our department better. We're grateful for that.
All right, we're almost at the point of departing comments. I'm just going to make this comment. If your fire department has a culture issue, if you feel negative, or if you think that we're going in the wrong direction, give Dave Dubowski a call. You're going to get flooded. Give Dave Dubowski a call, because he's going to tell you otherwise, and he's going to give you some advice. And I strongly, if you're a chief officer, even a company officer, I strongly advise you to take heed, because, like I said, this is our business. This is our industry. We're going to turn it over to the next generation. But how do you want to turn it over? This guy's retiring December the 10th, but that doesn't mean he's done in this industry. And I think he's done a phenomenal job in that culture shift.
And one thing I always appreciate about Dave is he's completely honest with you all the time. Whether that's what you want to hear or not, he's going to tell you exactly, because he cares about you and he cares about the job and the profession and the people you work with. And I've always appreciated that.
Well, you guys have said enough nice things about me for a day. I will finish on not my words, but Aaron Heller up in Jersey, when he retired a few years back. I gave him a call and he said, "Dave, I am retiring from my fire department, but I'm not retiring from the fire service." And that's exactly where I'm at. I'm retiring from my fire department, but I will not retire from the fire service. I'm not ready yet.
Yeah.
That's a great point. When people retire, I give them a ceremony and I say, "Hey, congratulations on your retirement, but you're not out of the family. You're just assuming a new role." And that's really it. Hey, what a great show. And like I said, take a look at this. And if you want to talk culture, that's what this show is about today. And, we got a couple things coming up here. We're getting into the holiday season, but that means FDIC is right around the corner. So if you've not registered yet for the greatest, event of the fire service year, make sure you do that. If you want to get a little education, go ahead and open up that fire engineering magazine. Get in there, take a look, get a great article, and get some new education behind you. Jason, what do you got?
Yeah, the November edition was excellent. A lot of good stuff in there. I get both the digital and the written one, and I go through it every month. Even as a chief, I read them every month. No, great guest, great career. Proud to call him a friend. I'm very fortunate that I got to go to fires with Dave. I loved it when they didn't have battalion chiefs on that side of the north end. When I was a battalion chief, because I got to go all those calls no matter what, and got to spend a lot of time watching Dave and those company officers do incredible work. And Dave, your stamp on our profession and St. Louis in particular is permanent and will never be forgotten. And we're appreciative of everything you've done and the legacy that you've shared for so many people that are doing outstanding work. And I think that's a true testament to who you are in your career. So thank you.
Well, thanks so much. Jason, I think about one of those fires we were both at. I think it was a third alarm restaurant fire up on North Limburg, right over on the Blackjack side, nighttime arson fire. I think we did a pretty good job that night because I drive by that place frequently, and it's got a roof on it, and there's a functioning business on it. But that was a good fire, and I remember me and you both being there that night.
Yep. You're right. It's still there, and they're operating out of it.
All right. Any parting words, Jason? If not, go for it, Dubo.
No, hey, man, in that November Fire Engineering magazine, make sure you check out the article by my fellow photographer, JJ Cassetta.
Yes.
JJ has an incredible article about a MVA that they responded to down in Orlando. So besides all the other good stuff, there it is right there. But check out JJ's extrication article. It's a very good read on a very tough call.
Awesome. All right, Jason, take us home.
Yeah. Again, thanks for tuning in. Tactical Impact. Today was special for us to be able to share Dave Dubowski's legacy as he retires from his fire department, but not the fire service. All of us are better for knowing and working with Dave and for all he does. Dave, any special news about Muddy River Fools?
Hey, it's funny you talked about that because we swore we'd never do it again after the 2013 Fools Convention in St. Louis, but hell has now frozen over, and in 2026 we'll be hosting the 2026 Fools International Convention in St. Louis, September 14th through 18th. And even though Jim Silvernail is not a current member of the Muddy River Fools, I am sure that he will stop by and say hello to all you brother and sister fools from across the country that will stop into St. Louis that week.
You always tell me that, and I'm very tempted. I'm going to start showing up at your meetings. I'm telling you, it's not a threat.
You're always welcome.
Thank you, buddy.
So, September 14th through 16th, get it on your calendars because it will be exceptional. It'll be a great couple days of training and brotherhood and sisterhood, all of those things. And you can't go wrong with how they set the conference up, the convention here in St. Louis. Outstanding people. Also, registration is open for FDIC. Make sure those hot classes, if you're interested in, they sell out just about every single year. Also, take a look at the hybrid offerings that they're going to have, exceptional instructors this year. And it's going to be here before you know it. And then on top of that, if you're in Missouri Winter Fire School, always got to give props to that because I've been going there for over 30 years. So when Dave was getting on as a career guy, I was starting my volunteer journey in '85. And I have a great allegiance to the Missouri Fire Schools. February, great little conference. You'll see people like Dave and Jim and the rest of us there. We have a great time. But other than that, as always, thanks to Fire Engineering, Clarion. You're not going to find better fire service content than with these publications and mediums. And with that, want to wish everybody a happy winter. We're coming up on Thanksgiving and the holidays. Be safe. And as always, keep training and take Dave's words to heart and shape those around you, mold those around you, and just keep fighting through any of those difficult times that you have, because it matters. And with that, I'll let Jim finish this up, and thanks for tuning in.
All right. On behalf of Jason, myself, Dave Dubowski, thanks for joining. We'll see you for another edition of Fire Engineering's Tactical Impact.